to Zero Sum Gaming here at the Culture Cache. Chip from Knoxville, Tennessee sent us The Legend of Zelda. Surely to God you've heard of Zelda. I'm pretty sure you can't call yourself a gamer if you've never heard of that one. Oh, and one more thing. Don't be that guy who accidentally calls Link Zelda. My own wife even recently called Link Zelda.
I still love you.
I don't want to talk about it. Let's get to the game.
You might be wondering why this game has no subtitle, even though the rest of the series does. A Link to the Past, Twilight Princess, Ocarina of Time. Well, guess what? This game actually did have a subtitle. In Japan. It was known as the Hyrule Fantasy, and it keeps this game more in line with its later brethren. Put yourself back in the glory days of 1987. Aretha Franklin became the first woman inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Kim Wilde gave us her awesome cover of the Supremes song, You Keep Me Hanging On. Married with Children and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles debuted on television. Predator, RoboCop, The Princess Bride, and, most importantly, Spaceballs hit the big screen. It was a very good year, and for that reason, I'll forgive you if you didn't also notice that The Legend of Zelda reached the United States in 1987. Back then, few video games offered us such a massive playground. The fantasy world of Hyrule seemed to stretch in every direction as far as the eye can see, and nearly every sprite on the screen held a potential secret. This is why I said to keep yourself in a 1987 mentality. In addition to anchoring yourself to the single best decade the world has ever known, you want this game to retain its mystery. I say this because, as much as I hate to admit it, it really is 2016, not 1987. You could just look up a walkthrough with a map and make this one of the simplest games out there. But don't do that! Would you order a nice expensive porterhouse steak, let somebody else chew it up and spit it out, and then you eat it? Of course not! When you guide your way through a video game, it's the functional equivalent of doing that. You'll get so much more out of this game if you unravel it yourself, and there are a ton of mysteries at hand. I already wrote an article about this, and it's posted at theculturecache.com. I'll include a link in the description so as to not repeat myself. The Zelda series truly is magical in that it can, even in jaded and cynical 2016, transport us from our own lives directly into the mythical world of Hyrule. Yes, we know it's not real, but the games are so well done that it's not hard at all to suspend disbelief while we're playing them. This is due, in large part, to the skilled masterwork of gaming god Shigeru Miyamoto. Donkey Kong? Check. Super Mario Bros? Check. The Legend of Zelda? Check. Yeah, you know this guy's work. In fact, even if you're not a gamer, you know this guy's work. Supposedly, Mario is the most recognized mascot on Earth right now, and I don't doubt it. There's a reason Time magazine once called him the Spielberg of video games. The man is truly the essence of fun, distilled into human form. And part of that is because he so deftly makes his games relatable. The Zelda franchise does this particularly well. Miyamoto grew up in Sonobe, Kyoto, Japan. It's an uncharacteristically rural area in Japan, housing the ruins of an ancient castle. Young Shigeru had no television growing up. While this was possibly a boon to his creativity, it almost certainly was for his inquisitive, exploratory nature. He encountered a cave that both intrigued and frightened him. He eventually explored its dark depths with the light of a lantern to guide him. He swelled with both courage and pride at what he'd done, and this became the genesis of what we today call the Legend of Zelda. Really stop and think of that story for a moment. Get a Zelda game in your head, whether it's the one you're looking at on screen now or not. The odds are good that, at some point, you will end up spelunking, likely with a lantern, candle, or illuminating magic to guide you, and sooner or later, you'll be trekking through some ruins and/or a majestic castle. Zelda's exploration feels so good because Miyamoto is a master of conveying those feelings to his players. There's a word for this in Japanese, kyokon, and it's the single best word to describe why his games are so great. It's basically a shared experience, in this case, between the game designer and the player. As people debate about the character of Link, an important detail often lost in the shuffle is that he was originally there to represent Miyamoto himself. Have you ever wondered why Link is left-handed? It's because the ambidextrous game designer favors his own left hand. So guess what? In this game, you'll be using your left hand as well. So be sure to enjoy the 128-screen overworld and especially the 9 dungeons. You really can feel the love that went into making them. Of course, Zelda's about more than just journeying. Combat is always a major component of the games as well. It certainly is in this one. Be warned that if you're used to later iterations of the franchise, this game's going to feel pretty limited. It's not bad, you just won't have many of the tools at your disposal that you're used to. If you're thinking of using the hookshot to zip across the screen, forget about it. Frankly, you don't even have the spin slash in this one. Just keep the game in its proper context. This is the first Zelda after all. If it didn't exist, you wouldn't have had the later games to give you those wonderful toys.
Where does it get those wonderful toys?
Still, the combat is fun, even if it's been greatly improved upon over the years. There's such a variety of enemies for you to fight that it never gets boring. While most enemies exist in 2 different color palettes, there's still lots of unique enemies to contend with. And quite a few of them are more challenging than anything you've seen since the series transitioned to 3D. Right this second, I dread fighting Wizrobes and Darknuts. Wait, Wizrobes? That sounds kinda gross. And Darknuts? No comment. But seriously, these guys are tough, and they can rapidly empty your hearts. Actually, many mainstays of the series got their starts here. Tektites, Octoroks, Dodongos.
Great! I can't wait to bomb some Dodongos!
No. Just... no. Hey, I know. Should I start acting like I'm in a Zelda CDI game in all of my Culture Cache videos? Welcome back to the Culture Cache! I can't wait to show you today's game!
Zelda players often go back and forth as to which is the more important element of the games, exploration or combat. Nobody denies that both combine to bring us the incredible experiences that they do, but which is more important? Personally, I think it's 51-49 discovery over combat. Depending on the type of player you are, you can somewhat custom tailor this game to your tastes. The way enemies respawn is that if you kill all the enemies on a screen and travel to 8 different screens, all the defeated enemies on that first screen will be back. But only if you kill all of them. If you kill some but not all, the game remembers how many enemies are left, and it will spawn the same number the next time you go to that screen. It won't always be the exact same enemies, but it will be the same number. This means if you prefer more combat, kill everything that moves and the game will spawn more monsters for you. If you prefer to poke around and find what was, at some point, a secret to everybody, kill all but one enemy on each screen so no more will show up. Puzzles are an important part of Zelda too, but they're pretty tough in this game. Through a combination of misinformation, mistranslations, and random obscurity, you'll see some real brain teasers in this game. There are lots of old men in the game offering quote-unquote helpful advice. Some of it really is, but for every genuinely useful tidbit you get, expect to get one ridiculously obvious one, and at least one that makes no sense whatsoever. But honestly, we proud children of the 80s love this. Or maybe it's just me. But there was something awesome about the daily sharing of information at school each day. Yeah, you had to wade through a lot of bullcrap, but you and all of your friends got the satisfaction of solving games with your own skills and wits. It's true that the internet is here today, and with it, both the bullcrap and the solutions come much faster. But the personal element has just about entirely been eliminated. You have to actively cloister yourself if you want to play a game for yourself these days. Okay, there's no getting around this one. You've heard me say time and time again that you should always judge a game's graphics based on the capabilities of its own time. And by that standard, these graphics are still pretty bad. Consider that this game came out the same year we got the first Dragon Quest, Metroid, Adventure Island, and Castlevania games. Those four, and many others, clearly trump this game in terms of visuals. This game still has a lot to offer, even today, but it's not the graphics that will be drawing you to it. But I think I know what will sell you on it. The same thing that did back then.
Did you see the latest Nintendo newsletter?
Whoa, nice graphics. I'd like to get my hands on that game.
You mean you haven't played it yet? We can play it on my Nintendo Entertainment System. It's The Legend of Zelda, and it's really rad. Those creatures from Ganon are pretty bad. Octoroks, Tektites, Levers, too. But with your help, our hero pulls through. Yeah, go Link, yeah, get Zelda.
Awesome.
Intense.
The Nintendo Entertainment System. Your parents help you hook it up. The Legend of Zelda sold separate.
Okay, I admit it. The 80s weren't perfect. If anything, this game had to be good to overcome that debacle. Anyway, let's get into sound effects next. And as we do, I want to introduce you to another gaming legend, likely one you're not as familiar with. Koji Kondo is the audio heavyweight at Nintendo. He's granted us the themes to our past and present favorites, including Super Mario Bros. And Zelda. As an anniversary gift last year, my wife took me to see The Legend of Zelda Symphony of the Goddesses, and it was the perfect gift. I got to see many of this man's compositions come to life. The fact that a video game score can be played in a concert hall without it seeming the least bit weird is a testament to its quality. I won't go so far as to call it truly peerless, but Zelda is one of a very few series with the chops to pull that off. As far as this game goes, it had to start somewhere. That sounds meaner than I intended. What you hear is quite good, there's just not a lot of range in this game. You'll either hear the overworld or dungeon music for literally 90% of the time you're playing this game. But they're of such a high quality that they really don't get boring or anything. Then again, it could be conditioning on my part. I religiously watched the Super Mario Bros. Super Show, and every Friday was devoted to Zelda. These cartoons used the music and sound effects from the game, so that helped normalize and endear them to me even more. Music has always been an important part of this franchise. In nearly every game, Link acquires a musical instrument, and it is required to advance the game. Occasionally, they're even plot-centric, such as in Link's Awakening or Ocarina of Time. Sadly, in the States, we lost a small part of this audio aspect in our first Zelda. We get the clue, Pole's voice hates loud noise. If you played this game back in the day, this likely caused you great confusion. When you hear a clue like that, you think, awesome, I'll just whip out my flute and... wait, nothing happened. That tip has nothing to do with the in-game audio. On the Famicom, the Japanese NES, the second controller has a built-in microphone instead of start and select. You can actually see traces of this in really old NES games. Ever wonder why only player 1 can pause some games? That's why. Anyway, you used to have to make a lot of noise into the mic to insta-kill Pole's voices. But since we don't have a microphone, we get a useless clue. It's actually pretty weird that they bothered to keep the line, but I digress. With the old weakness gone, in the Western Hemisphere, Pole's voice is instead weak to the bow and arrow. The controls are simple, but very stiff. You move around with the D-pad, but the world is a giant grid, so there's not a lot of freedom in your movement. You don't have to fix yourself exactly to a space, but there's no diagonal movement. There's no diagonal attacking either, except for the boomerang. A is your sword button, and each press makes Link stab forward. B is for your equipped item, such as that boomerang or bow I was just talking about. No bones about it, this game is hard. This is not your father's Zelda game. Well, Actually, in all likelihood, it is your father's Zelda game, possibly literally. The controls can make combat imprecise and harder than it needs to be. And the world is large enough that it can be difficult to figure out where you need to go. The game throws you straight into the deep end, and you'll either sink or swim. As soon as you start a new game, you're unarmed and on a screen with the choice to go left, right, up, or into a cave. There's not really any indication which way is correct. But this is genius in its execution. You're supposed to go to that cave first and get the wooden sword. Doing so nets you an immediate reward and the satisfaction that goes with it. This game wants you to get inquisitive about the cave. Then, by giving you a prize so quickly, the game manages to incentivize your curiosity. That curiosity will fuel you for the rest of the game. If you haven't done so yet, give this game a chance. It's the rock-solid foundation in a venerated franchise. It's just a ton of fun. This is the kind of game that simply wants to be played, and it lets you do what you wish. For example, I regularly get the white sword before entering the first dungeon. If this game was made today and you tried to do that, you'd get an earful of,
"Hey, look! Hey, listen! Hey, look! Look! Hey, listen!"
who wants to put up with that crap? Leave me alone and let me see what's in this cave. And that's exactly what you'll get in this game. Just one more rock. Just one more tree. Just one more cave. That one's sure to hold the elusive secret I'm searching for. Oh, and this game has 2 full quests on the cart. Also in heavy rotation in 1987, by the way.
Is The Legend of Zelda worth it? It is if you're going to play the game like it was meant to be played. For about $22, you can get the NES or GBA cart. On the NES, this is kind of weird. The gold version is actually way more common than the gray one, and the gray ones are more reliable, but they don't really fetch any more money. They're about the same price. Oh well, it's the same game, so get whichever one you want. Or you could get the collector's edition for $35. This one's on the GameCube. It's getting harder and harder to find these days, but it's got 4 Zelda games on it, including this one. And frankly, if you don't mind going digital on the Wii, Wii U, or 3DS, you can get this game for 5 simoleons, so you really don't have any excuse. Thanks for watching.
You're not afraid of dragons, are you?
Of course not!
Then get my necklace back from Gliok, okay? Pretty please?
No goddamn way!
Oh my goodness, this is awful!
Truer words were never spoken.